Welcome one and all to Office Hours, where we answer your media and tech-related production questions every single day right here. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia is our reader today. Alexander, what's our first question?
First one is coming in from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. What's the difference between the newly introduced Panasonic UE150A and the discontinued UE150?
And the right answer is not one letter. Ronnie Hofsoy is going to start us off this morning. Ronnie?
Yeah, so a few of the things that I've been looking at for this specific model is the OLPF filter, which is reducing more and using that with the built-in tracking, which has been a part of the latest models as well from Panasonic, is kind of cool. It also have a full bandwidth NDI feed, so this is what we're talking about. It also continue to use the SRT that has been a part of the latest models, and the built-in tracking, of course, is also something new. And I think that is if they have been looking at Sony and a few of the other vendors out there, that has impressed us greatly with automatic tracking, which in some models is called AI tracking, and we know that it's more like machine learning and good programming. But it seems that Sony are leading the pack here, so it will be really nice to test this Panasonic as well, just compare them side by side.
Real AI versus marketing AI. Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I think Ronnie got all the high points of the new features of this one versus the old one. It does have upgraded optical image stabilization. They improved the algorithm on the OIS, optical image stabilization. But that, in addition to the new NDI high bandwidth, lets you stream low latency 4K video a little better over NDI. That's a major upgrade.
Alex?
Yeah, I think a lot of the telemetry data that they have is still probably top notch, and so for virtual sets, as well as being able to zoom in from a long distance, I think the Panasonic still has the advantage. We just looked at a bunch of studios while I was in LA, and pretty much anybody that's doing a studio now is swapping out the Panasonics for the Sonys. You know, like if they have a small studio that they don't have green screen, they don't have those types of things. The FR7 is kind of taking over just because of the large sensor size. But for things where they need to do the tracking or need a long throw, the Panasonics are still a pretty good solution.
Next question.
Andre Dole in Berlin. Omar, welcome to the panel, and thanks for the great insights into the show floor. Did you finally decide on a new encoder, seeing all the different models at NAB?
Omar, welcome, and what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so Andre's asking this question because I was streaming quite a bit to After Hours from the NAB show floor, and in that stream I was talking a lot about my need for a new encoder. So I'm leaning towards a Magewell Ultra Encode AIO, or a similar offering maybe from KiloView. Or I might look to purchase a Pearl Nano used, because my budget's around $1,000, so we'll see.
Since you're relatively new here, can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do?
Sure, yeah. I'm a video producer here in Orange County in Southern California. We do live events, surfing, sports, MMA. We also do conferences, much like many people here, and then we also do quite a bit of more traditional video production for brands and companies, brand videos, fashion, all kinds of stuff. So,
if you do surfing videos, you're going to have to come back and tell us how you keep sand out of your gear. That's the big question that I've never been able to solve. So,
do not buy my gear used, is what I would say.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. Nice to have you here. Next question.
This one's from me. Jonas, what's the state of the union with GPU prices if one was looking at building a PC for production? What GPU, money, no object would you choose? A few years back, there was a shortage and skyrocketing prices.
Jonas, what do you think? What's your thinking?
I have to admit, I would not admittedly, you're in Canada, so your prices might not be as much on the flux right now, but keep in mind that there's a lot of change in the market right now as to availability and prices and additional costs on getting things from A to B. I tend to just go with NVIDIA most of the time, like 60, 70 is enough for most of the things that I do, because my GPU is in the cloud and I don't have to care about any of that. So I have never built my own computer. I use a laptop and dial into more powerful GPUs when I need it. But yeah, I mean, the new NVIDIA cards do look pretty good. Their pricing is kind of like going crazy, even before we add tariffs and like duties and all of that. Where I would just buy what you need. Like, if you're running vMix, go with what they recommend. If you're running another software, go with what they recommend. They have tested that with that. The Intel GPUs are becoming more and more interesting from a encoding perspective. I know that more and more brands are starting to use the Intel Arc GPUs. They're starting to get more supported. But mostly NVIDIA is still king for encoder support.
Thank you for all of that. Oh, Courtney wants to sneak in on this one. Courtney? Oh, no, he disappeared. Let's go to the
sorry, I had my finger on the button. I was just going to say, I looked at prices. The prices depend upon the RTX 5090, which is their flagship GPU right now from NVIDIA. And there's a number of different manufacturers that use that chipset to create their video cards, and you can see the range of prices here, ranging. These are all with 32 gigabytes of onboard graphics memory. You get the gigabytes NVIDIA's from 2400 to 2800 for this one. That is I don't know what different. It's boosted clock speed. The differences in clock speed. So it depends on the clock speed that you choose. The base price is $1,999 or $2,000, but most people are selling it above that. And if you can find them, if there's a shortage, they tend to be scalped a lot by people that if there's a rarity of availability, the prices will almost double depending upon your market, the availability of the cards.
Next question.
Andre Dole in Berlin's asking, Jonas, I hope you are better again. How were things going on NAB for all your exciting products?
Jonas, back in. Whoops. Am I seeing him dropped out? I'm not seeing his pictures. Oh, no, there he is down there.
I think it was kind of cool to, this is the first NAB that I had a product that was on the show floor. Let's see if I go here. We can even see it. We announced CloudFlex Broadcast, which is our overlay orchestration platform for cloud production that makes all of that easier, especially if you need access to instances. Like I have a vMix system started here. Going into it is as simple as clicking that button, accepting that the internet is unsecure, and then I will be in. You don't need to manage passwords, all of that. That is really what we built this for. We keep, now you're in your normal system here. We keep saying this is the tool that we wish we had 5 years ago when we started. You can manage your feeds. You have a flow manager that allows you to take NDI and stream it over SRT or HLS to YouTube. We have an ad manager that allows you to then select one of those and insert scouting marks into that feed. And then also one of the things that was most important to me is having the ability to have very fine-grained control. So like an ESC gets a specific the admin role, but only to a specific studio from then all of that is customizable. That was pretty cool to see. I was lucky and I had a little camera on our booth where I could see what's going on and was able to talk to some people over space comms, which was quite fun to have people experience how it is firsthand. And then the other product that we kind of announced was together with the Fiber guy, we had an integration with space comms with the Stream Announcer, which is announcer console made for remote and virtual production that shows up as two audio devices. So you put one of them into Zoom, one of them into Space Comms, and then you have a aux button. As soon as you had that, you will be sent to Space Comms instead of Zoom, muted to Zoom. You have a cough button, volume, all of that. In device ducking if someone talks to you over comm. So has been a lot of fun to showcase all of these different products at NAB. And as sad as I was to not be there, every time I was able to just eat the home cooked meal here at home and still see what's going on at the booth and talk to some people, I was, maybe it's not the worst deal, but still would have loved to be there.
So for some of us who are having a little difficulty with talkback buttons and things like that, is the announcer console readily available these days?
Yeah. It is now shipping. You can buy it on thefiberguy.com. And I can't wait to get mine. Mine got delayed because it had to go to the show floor first. And that's how it is. But yeah, I'm really excited about it, especially as it's like built from people that are really great in the audio things, and then with feedback from us that I've been doing these virtual and cloud productions for a long time, it is the device that we needed and couldn't find anywhere else on the market.
It's how innovation often happens. Somebody has a problem, it's not being addressed by the marketplace, so they figure out how to address it themselves. Well, good luck with everything, and I'm glad you had satisfying NAB. Let's go to our next question.
Chris Sabato in Albany, Oregon. I'm bringing in two SRT feeds to vMix via an SRT gateway in AWS. What is the best way to adjust for sync? Should I delay the video in vMix, adjust the SRT latency, or something else?
Jonas is going to help you out. Jonas?
I would start with making sure the SRT latency is the same. You will get within 1 to 3 frames of sync most of the time with that. And then delaying in vMix is fine. One of the great things with SRT is that the latency is deterministic and you know where the latency is. If you still see differences, that is most likely to the difference in encode latency. You could try to adjust that with the SRT send and receive buffers. I don't love doing that because then you need to keep all of that in your head and it becomes less obvious what you're doing. So I would do that in vMix. Alternatively, what we do is we use Nimble Streamer, for example, that is able to read the SCI metadata that has the timestamps in it and then delay the frames even more. So how that works is you set a really deterministic latency on everything where you say, okay, this is the time code. I want my frames to come out of the sender 750 milliseconds later, and then it will delay it by as much as it needs to. But yeah, I would just delay it in vMix. Keep in mind that does use a good amount of storage, memory on your RAM. So keep that in mind. But yeah, we've done either way, and I would just do it in vMix. So you have more control without having the need to like reconnect over and over to make changes.
Don't forget, your questions drive our entire show. We're always taking your questions. You can ask, chat about them, and vote on them, which is very important in Mukana, our kind of Q&A system. If you go to officehours.global/join, we'll send you an email within a day or two. And once you've done that, you can sign up, and then you'll get into the community, and you can help program the show with your votes. So it's very important. That's that's officehours.global/join. Next question.
Audrey Dole in Berlin. We are deciding to cancel our Vimeo subscription. We mainly used it for distribution of unlisted uploaded recordings of events and a few streams for customers. Do you see any reason why I shouldn't use our YouTube account instead?
Omar is going to help us out here. Omar?
Yeah, the main reason I wouldn't use a YouTube to distribute those kind of videos to clients is control. Vimeo or Frame.io or these other services like this give you finer control over what they see, when they see it. You can replace a video if you need to make a change and use the same link that you've already given them. on YouTube, they might get an ad if they're trying to watch the video that you're delivering to them. So it's mostly about control. We still use Vimeo for our website videos. That way we're able to take off the overlay and just have them look clean and sleek, and that's our CDN that we use for that. But that's the main reason I wouldn't use it, control.
Jonas?
Yeah, I wouldn't use YouTube either, just from there is a requirement to showcase, are you sure you want to send your data to a non-European country cookie warner before you are allowed to embed it in Europe? Technically, not everybody abides by that, but in theory, you do need that. So that's one thing. Embedding can be a little iffy sometimes, especially depending on where your channel settings are. YouTube now doesn't really do the modest branding anymore, so there is not an ability to not have them click through to YouTube. I would look at alternatives like Cloudflare Stream or Max or similar solutions that are not as featured like YouTube, and you do have costs that come by the amount of people watching. So that is one of the common issues that you find with and probably one of the reasons that Vimeo also keeps struggling with that is it is hard to say how many people are watching, and for a lot of clients, they do not understand how the price changes with how many people are watching. So most of the time you need to calculate that on your own, take your 25% margin on top of that, plus take some for security, because you never know if it goes viral or something like that. Have a clause in your contract that says, hey, if this goes crazy, we can't pay for all that bandwidth. But with YouTube, you don't have a reliable way of knowing, are there going to be ads? What is the embedding looking like? And all of that. So I would rather use something else. There's also a couple of providers in Germany with GDPR compliant services that you could also look to. Most of them are per some form of metered metric for their pricing. But what I'll say is you probably have a pretty good idea of how many people are watching your streams, and often you can just say, let's calculate with up to 500, maybe up to 1,000 viewers, and you will be fine with that. And you will have a much better experience. One thing to keep in mind is going away from Vimeo or YouTube, or depending on what feedback, what level of service you had with Vimeo, and you might lose the ability to have a primary and a secondary ingest. Not all platforms provide that for you.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
Yeah, so as a long-time user of both platforms and several others that also is mentioned elsewhere, we tend to not use Vimeo for streaming. We had a few cases where we went high above our limitations or allotted the bandwidth. So we actually had some problems with that. So we tend to use YouTube if there is official streams. We also use other closed types of streaming solutions if there are supposed to be ticketing or ticket events. So the way we are using Vimeo is a little bit different than Andrea is using it. So in this case, maybe Andrea is right of quitting using Vimeo if it doesn't use all the functionality. And be aware that Vimeo has also introduced a few new things to their platform recently. They have AI translations, etc. So they are doing stuff that are kind of cool to watch and see. But I feel they are not in the front of the shoe. They're not kind of cutting edge implementing all these features. There are others that are a little bit more eager to capture market shares, and Vimeo is kind of a little bit, laid back, if that's correct to say.
Alex Lindsay.
I think Vimeo does a pretty good job of being focused on the business orientation of businesses that they have ways of building channels. They're building a new creator channel option so that it's very easy to build your own app. and build your own channel for like a Netflix-like channel, but for your content. So building all that around it, I think Vimeo kind of leads the pack, and I think that's where they spend most of their energy. I think that your choices are very slim after you get out of YouTube, to go, as far as what you're going to do that isn't going to cost money. So Vimeo is one of the options there. Cashfly, which is used by Twit, and we've used it a lot. We use it for how we distribute Michael Krasny's show, is another option. They do streaming. They also will say, you can make that a repository as well. So that's another one to look at there. But a lot of times we switch back and forth between, if we have some clients that use Vimeo, a lot of clients stream. If it's a public stream and they're not trying to protect it, then we have a tendency to use YouTube. If they are going to try to protect it in some way, shape, or form, it's usually either Cashfly or Akamai. And Akamai's real money. But it just is what it is. And we just tell them, this is how much it's going to cost per 1,000 hours, of viewing, and it's just a certain number of it's a cost per gig, and we don't quote out an estimate, but we don't guarantee that estimate because it's based on the viewership.
If you're enjoying the content here on Office Hours, don't forget we are mounting more and more shows in the evening. Extra Hours happens Monday nights for those around the world, 6 p.m. Pacific time, just to get your kind of time check about when they all happen, 6 p.m. But various evenings, that happens on Monday, Extra Hours with Grant Whitehead. On Tuesday this week, we're going to have Jeff Keithley on and talking about some of the back-end stuff. On Thursday, The Rundown with David Paskin hosts a panel driven that takes kind of a deep dive into the why behind technology. So there's reasons to come, not just every morning, but increasingly reasons to come on various days. So check those out. Next question.
This one is from Ian Alford in London. What are the trends to watch in remote production following NAB?
Jonas, start us off.
I think we've seen a lot more NDI than in the past years. A lot of more vendors are going into NDI. NDI Bridge specifically has been a lot more, Panasonic is embedding it into some of their cameras. There's now a audio to NDI tool that also does remote over NDI Bridge. So I think there's a lot for that. In general, it felt like this NAB was less of hey, we have one solution that this is us and we don't integrate with anyone else. And it was more hey, we do actually work kind of well with those guys and we do integrate with them. So it seems like there's more integration that will end up leading to more of that. But in the remote production, I still see a lot of proprietary, hey, this is our specific protocol. If you see Tri-Iris or the rebranded PTZ Optics Hive, only works with their service. Yes, they work with a bunch of cameras, but it only works with their services. If their service has issues, you're still locked into that. And then also from the chat, JJ just mentioned the new discovery service and NDI 6.3 that is going to be pretty interesting because it allows you more control and knowledge over the different receivers as well. So I see NDI as trying to play a larger and larger role there. We see a lot of NDI also now coming into control, be it central control. Visa-T uses NDI for their flex panels, and there's now more and more metadata specs that use NDI for MIDI, SCSI 35. There's a proposal for putting all the SDI metadata on it. There's GPI triggers, DMX. So it seems like NDI keeps growing there right now.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, Bitfire is something I heard. I hadn't really been tracking very much, but I heard a couple times, after NAB. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I do think that if a bunch of people's heart didn't sink a little bit when they saw that Blackmagic is putting the ATEM in the cloud, it might, like a bunch of their competitors. This is how Blackmagic works. Is that you see this hey, we put a 4-channel switcher in the cloud. that's how it starts, right? Like this is like the little finger in the thing that like we're just going to figure
shot
this
across
out.
the bow.
But it's not even a shot across the bow. It's like I put a little toe in here, and but with all the cameras starting to have SRT and a lot of other things, and obviously you can see Blackmagic kind of taking their infrastructure and taking the ecosystem, and you can see how they're starting to pay more attention to the cloud. And it, of course, it's not that it's going to be better than everything else. It's just going to be 1/10 the cost, and for a lot of people, it will be enough for them to get their shows done, and it'll look just like the one that they have on their desk, so that's the real challenge. I think that's a trend that when we saw that in the Friday before NAB, I was like, oh, if people aren't scared, they should be. like that's maybe it will take some time, but it could just put an incredible amount of price pressure on, you have to remember that when you think about the A10 minis, and there are over 1 million of those in the ecosystem. It's much larger. It's a much larger ecosystem than everybody else. So you just have to and so when they start to put their the power of their infrastructure around the cloud, it took Blackmagic a long time to get there, but here we go.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois, USA. I'm looking to expand the I/O of my Mac Mini. What are my options besides just buying another Mac Mini?
Omar is going to start us off. Omar?
Yeah, your best bet is probably to get a Thunderbolt dock of some sort. If you do, just make sure it's from a reputable brand. Couple of options here from OWC I've had good experience with. Make sure you have a good cable. These are good that come with OWCs. And then just keep in mind that all that stuff's going into one port now, so the quality of the hub really does matter in terms of taking all of the stuff that you're connecting and being able to pipe it down that Thunderbolt and maintain the bandwidth needed.
Jason Beisch.
Oh, Kyle, you have so many options. So first, you didn't tell us whether or not you have a Thunderbolt 5 capable Mac Mini or something earlier than that. If you have Thunderbolt 5, yes, I totally agree. The Thunderbolt 5 hub is incredible. What I like about OWC's Thunderbolt 5 hub is that it actually doesn't skimp on the power. Like, it is separately powered, which sure, it's another cord, but what that means is you get 3 entirely separate daisy chains all the way down, which at this point, unless you're really pushing hard drives, is your only shot at saturating a Thunderbolt 5 bus. But you actually can, even with the lower level minis, which is pretty cool. If you only have Thunderbolt 4, something prior to the M4, I really like the Go Dock. I think this is truly one of the best, and the reason is it doesn't have a wall wart. It takes a C8, which is just kind of the standard, side to side. It's the same as the Mac Mini. And then it's kind of like a little bit of a hub built in. It gives you 2 Thunderbolt lanes out. There's this HDMI, gigabit Ethernet, 2 USB, 3.2 generation 1, and then a 2.0 in the front, a separate 3.2 in the front, and then audio and SD card in the front. And it's completely passively cooled and completely silent.
Nice. Rami?
Yeah, so the two guys before me were mentioning OWC, so I'm going in the direction of mentioning OWC. They really have the absolutely rock solid port extenders that you can wish for. As Alex said, the Thunderbolt 5 is, of course, future-proofing if you're going to get yourself a Mac Mini, for instance, that is supporting Thunderbolt 5. If not, you should just look at the other options they have, mostly Thunderbolt 3s with a various number of ports and types of ports. So just make sure that you select the OWC and you will be perfectly okay.
I'm coming to you through another one, and I have my 11 ports on this dock. I think I have 1 still available. It's really easy to keep growing things, and it all just works. Next question.
This one is coming from Svitlana Hodzina in Belarus, Minsk. What types of microphones, not a brand or trademark, are the best for recording speech with unnecessary noisy, loud backgrounds like street transportation, traffic or production noise, or crowds speaking behind a speaker?
Courtney Gooden's going to start us off. Courtney?
Well, there's the venerable dynamic microphones like here's a sample, the Shure SM58. There's a reason these are used on stage for live music acts because, they've got a lot of drums and things behind them that you don't want bleeding into the vocal mics. And they can handle a very high SPL, sound pressure level, so that you can scream into them without overdriving those dynamic capsules. And if you have a reporter, what a lot of the reporters are using in situations like, you go to conventions, things like that, is these headset microphones designed for broadcasters with a dynamic mic. This one's a Sennheiser. You see these used by a lot of the networks during the convention coverage because they're down on the convention floor being surrounded by people whose conversations you don't want to be putting on the air while the commentator is down there. And with that noise-canceling dynamic mic, they make them available in condenser and dynamic microphones. The condenser has a little broader frequency response, but the dynamic is naturally noise-canceling because it has an open back on the back of the microphone, so it kind of cancels sounds coming in from the backside of that microphone and gives it a real directional cardioid pickup. And I would have filtered out that phone ringing right now.
Oh, I didn't hear very much of it. But anyway, Ronnie Hofsoy, your thoughts?
Yeah, so you don't say what you're actually going to use this microphone. Beside that, you want to capture voice, which is kind of limiting in my head. And we have a saying here at Office Hours, it depends. So if you're going to do some interviews, I would probably go with something like an MD46, which is really good for handling noise, which is when you move your microphone in between. And either way, I would follow the previous speaker, Courtney. Get a good dynamic microphone, and I would suggest that you stay away from the condensers, which is really more sensitive and will capture everything around you. So get a good dynamic microphone. Test out a few. The SM58 from Shure is, of course, the hammer of all time. And there is another thing you can also think of. If you're not doing this live, so if you're recording this, you could probably get a lot of noise removed using newer software like DaVinci Resolve or Isotope RX or similar. So there are a lot of AI or machine learning tools or plugins to remove noise from a else good recording. So make sure that you have the shortest amount of distance between your microphone and your sound source, which in this case probably would be the mouth, and have a good quality recorder. If you're doing this live, there are tools like Mix preamps mixers with the built-in support for plugins like Noise Assist, etc. So there are different ways of handling this depending on how you're going to use this microphone and what you are going to use this, if it's live or if it's recording.
Alexander Knight.
Yeah, so the MD46, like it was mentioned, is my personal favorite. But specifically to the question you're asking about what types of microphones, we've sort of touched on that a little bit. And I do have to agree, generally dynamic mics for outdoor stuff is what you want. Remember that, and this is where it gets into the it depends category, because no two microphones are going to be exactly the same. So we talked about dynamic mics versus condenser microphones. There's also different pickup patterns, or what's called polar patterns. So you have cardioid, hypercardioid, supercardioid, for example. The Sennheiser, I believe, is a hypercardioid, but it's hard. It's not like you can compare apples and apples, because no two cardioid mics are going to be the same and no two hypercardioid mics are going to be the same. So you really have to listen to them, test them in the field, and see which ones you like. And obviously, it's pretty unanimous here on the panel that everyone seems to like the MD46. Personally, I think it sounds better than the SM58. It has the longer handle, and off-axis rejection and coloration much better than the 58.
And if you want to get your questions in quick, if you kind of are out driving around listening to us or something, and you think, oh, I've got a brilliant question, you can use askofficehours.global. Just type that into any web browser, your phone or whatever, askofficehours.global, and that puts you into the kind of the short, quick Q&A system. Next question.
Mike Beardmore in Bedford, UK. After listening to Home Theatre Geek Scott about his own theater sound treatment, how should I approach holding the TV sound within a very small room?
And he's got a link there. Alex Lindsay is going to help us out. Alex?
Of course, during the show, I was not able to watch Scott's, I'm sure, very fine show about it. So I don't know what he's going to say, but I'm going to say that it's the same as recording. You have to have you want the room to have as little effect on the sound as possible. So a lot of that has to do with having things that are going to reduce that reflection and absorb that. Now, you have to be careful of not absorbing one part and not the other. So a lot of times when you start looking at a small room, you're going to pay attention to whether, how much you're picking up of the mids and the highs. That's really easy to grab, by the way. Almost all kinds of diffusion will pull that out. But then also, how are you going to manage more of the bass reflections? And so you have to really think through that. And for folks that are really serious about it, they're measuring that to make sure that they get it right. But it's not. But as the room gets smaller, it does get more complicated. But you also you just really want to think about. It's all about. From my perspective, it's generally about sound absorption. Mickey says it is best to work with uncontrolled environments using physics to your advantage. Move away from the source of the noise. Use talents as baffles against the noise. And I'm not sure if he's talking about theater sound or maybe holding it. I'm thinking about the sound that's coming out of your TV. So anyway, go ahead.
Courtney Gooden.
The way your question is worded, I'm thinking you may be in, let's say, a communal living, like you're in an apartment where you're sharing walls with other neighbors, or you're, let's say, at you have a viewing room in your office where you don't want the TV sound to escape into the neighboring areas. A good, besides just casual listening, good TV sound bar these days sounds pretty good. They get a pretty amazing sound. They always have a subwoofer, but the thing you have to be careful about the subwoofer, especially if you're trying to contain the sound and you like to listen to it fairly loud in a small room, is to put the subwoofer on a piece of absorptive foam, like memory foam, so that the resonance of that subwoofer is not being transferred down through the floor to your neighbors down below. So they will be banging on the ceiling with their broom handles before long. So you have to be careful about that. It'll still give you a good bass response in the room without transmitting its lower frequencies, which travel the best through walls to your neighbors going down. And, if that's not what you're going for, I haven't seen Scott's video piece on Home Theatre Geeks, but I would trust his choices, whatever he presents there.
Alex Lindsay wants to come back in.
And as a member of a family that has lots of people doing lots of different things, something very popular in our house are headphones. Like if you can't get the reflections right, and you want it to be as loud as you want it to be, people tend to put on headphones. A lot of them have gotten pretty good at it's not as good. I have a discrete 7-1 system, so it does sound better when we use the speakers. But it also, if you're in a place where you're sharing the space or sharing walls with other people, in my case, I'm a house that's pretty far away from the other houses. And when we turn it up, you can tell what we're watching at the street, but we don't bother our neighbors in their houses. But in the house, a lot of people we all have our own headphones that we use when we're watching to stay out of everybody's way.
Yeah, that's very good advice. For me, I've always never forgotten the first time somebody drove by me with a Sirius stereo system in their car. I couldn't hear any of the top end, but you can hear that bass because those long bass waves travel really efficiently through a lot of stuff. And isolation is what you're trying to accomplish here. Isolating a space from external noise, or sometimes isolating the external world from the noise that's generated inside. And as we've talked a lot of times here, there's really not very many great ways to do that except building some sort of isolated space, like a room within a room, or using mass heavy stuff to kind of contain that, because Even the low frequencies have a little more trouble penetrating that. But boy, keeping loud, low frequencies from going wherever they want is a challenge. So good luck, Mike. Thanks for the question. Next question.
David Matika in Poland from the QR code's asking, has anyone used Science Image range of products and know about reliability? Looking at the range of Vela encoders, which looks like good value for money. Thoughts?
Alex Lindsay.
It's hard. We haven't used them. That's not a brand that I'm familiar with. I mean, I've seen them. I've seen people ask about them before, but we haven't used them at all. So I don't really have any input on it. I would look around. I mean, just because something's inexpensive and says I can do 4K at this price doesn't mean that it can do 4K well or reliably. So as I know that it's good for you to ask, but I don't know anybody I don't know anybody using those encoders.
Yeah. Excuse me. Next question.
Next one is from Ian Alford in London. Can you take us behind the scenes and tell us about the ins and outs for what office hours did at NAB compared to last year?
Sure. Alex Lindsay, you going to take us on a little tour here?
Yeah. So there's I think Jason is showing some of the video footage here, and so there was a little bit of a walk around there. So here you can see Jason being irradiated horribly. He's got a live view backpack on.
It felt great.
It felt great. Yeah. So anyway, so this is this is what we had set up. So basically we were using a Blackmagic 12K, and it was they were wired together there. So basically the 12K went into that pack, and what we changed here, we didn't do a whole booth, we just did a walk around. And part of that is that a lot of the feedback that we had in the past was that, hey, the walk arounds were the thing that people liked the most. We had a lot of other things that we put into our show, but they kind of liked the free flow walking through it, and we didn't have as much. I didn't have as much time to be there with the gear this time because I had another show on the next day. So so what we did is we brought it. Now we used a DPA. What you see in that what looks like that bike seat at the top, that is a DPA 5100, and that is a 5.1 mic. And so I think that we're learning how to use it. So I think that I think overall we learned that it has to be very, very close to the camera. We probably weren't as close as we needed to be, but it did give you this interesting surround and feel like you were there. I think a lot of people gave us a lot of feedback on how great it sounded. Some people said, "Well, it's not close enough." Mickey didn't think it was close enough, which I think is accurate when I listened to it. But at the same time, because it didn't feel like it was right against what you were looking at, but it did give you a feel like you were there. And almost all the feedback on it was very positive. One of the advantages over the ambisonic mic was we didn't have to post-process it. So this is a 5.1 mic. It goes into a Scorpio. The Scorpio, so we had that cable went into the Scorpio. The Scorpio, then what we did is we took the channels 3 and 4. LFE is not, I didn't think was necessary here. And 3 was the center channel. We just took those out and put the mics into there. Now we could have put the mics on a later channel too, but what I was trying to do is make it easy to control volume if we needed to. And so those mics were there, and they were then routed into the center channel, channel 3. So basically the mics took over the center channel, and I felt like there was a little bit of a challenge when we have a surround mic recording with the center channel, and then we have mics. There's a time issue there that bothered me. So taking them completely out and just replacing them with the mics, I thought worked out really well, in my opinion. So anyway, those go into there. Now we had a cable built by Gotham Sound that takes the left, right, and then there's a larger connector that connects to the Scorpio, and that allows us to dump AES out to an AJA 12G. I bought the 12G audio embedder from AJA, which allowed us to do a 4K 60 stream. Last time we were limited to the 4K 30 stream because Blackmagic doesn't make a 12K embedder. So I bought the 12G embedder, and so we were able to then embed that, and then that was delivered to the live view. And so then the live view was taking those channels. And what was kind of interesting here is that, again, it's on a Sunday. That we didn't need to wake everybody up and have them do anything on the other end. All we did is we had that sent out. That was sent to the LiveView and decoder in Michigan, and that was piped directly through the router directly into a Videon encoder. So this is the Edge Max or Max, the 4K Videon encoder. And what was kind of cool is you'll see at the very beginning, I'm sitting there with the Videon encoder and YouTube. I just opened up my laptop and just started them I was in the Videon cloud and just sitting there running the encoder, running YouTube, and being able to just start up the everything on my own there. So that was, it made it a little bit. It was really interesting. I think that the encoder did great. It's really easy to manage, and we're really happy with it. And then that went straight up to YouTube. And so it was not. There was no post processing. It was all the stuff that was happening there in the bag, so to speak. So there's some advantages to that it's light and doesn't require as many people to manage it. The disadvantages is you don't have someone like Mickey on the other end fine tuning everything while we're working. So there's a disadvantage of not having someone else able to kind of play with things as we go. Had two the handhelds were two Electrosonics. These are the analog versions, and so it's not like we can. We tested them a fair bit before the show, and one of the challenges, of course, is that when you start walking through the show, you're walking through a lot of different RF environments, and so I think in the future we probably would have walked before we started it. We would have just walked through the whole space and listened to it all before we went and broadcast it and seen if we can find it. I don't know if we would have found a channel, at least with the gear that we had there. And I have to say that I use this, I play with this a lot in a variety of environments, and the only time I have trouble with it is in NAB. So the
Paul Isaacs as your boom man there?
Sorry?
Is that Paul Isaacs surfing as your boom person there holding the TV?
No, that's Jason Garala. That's not Paul Isaacs.
Okay.
We walked. That would be funny if I had Paul Isaacs. That's from Sound Devices.
Has he moved over to the other side?
Yes. Yeah. So no. Yeah. We did walk by him at one point. I was going to grab onto him, but he was talking to somebody. So anyway, so that was the kind of the breakdown. I think that again we had some hits on the wireless. We're gonna play around with some upgrading things. It's hard to. Mickey said using RF systems without someone managing RF is hard. It's not a great idea. It's hard to get everything. It's hard to do everything perfectly. So.
At NAB, very difficult.
Well, we're working on figuring it out. So anyway, that's where we're at.
And our temporary pack mule in these videos, Jason Bache, wants to weigh in on this. Jason,
Alex did a great job describing this year. So I guess I'll pick up where he left off with last year. So this was the rig last year, and this took all of the time and undoubtedly cost all of the money. And of course, there was a booth last year, and it took a lot of time and a lot of just a ton of time to do. From many people.
It was a little bit of the horse driving the cart driving the horse, or the horse driving the cart, or whatever. The issue is that all we needed was a booth that had a transmitter. Like that's what we cared about, was putting something on there. But there was some resistance from NAB to give us a booth space and have it largely feel empty. And so then as we started to build it, we were like, oh, we could do this cool thing. And then it just got out of control. The whole thing got, we started being creative and everything else. But the reality is all we needed was a place to tie in. And then as we looked at all the footage from the year before, what we really loved was, it was really cool to have it gave us a place where a lot of people paid attention. We definitely got a lot of attention because of the booth. So it was a cool space to have it there. If it wasn't right on the edge, if we had been somewhere in the middle of Central Hall, A, our coverage would have been wider, and B, then that was the crazy. It's funny, I've reduced the size of that rig dramatically. Does the same thing. We just used it for a show this week, and anyway, I learned a lot. So the DJI, using DJI transmitters and monitors and so on and so forth. So, but I think that we learned that it was just an incredible amount of expense and heavy lifting to to run a booth, and so I was resistant to doing that. I think I'd probably share a booth with someone, but I don't know if I'd go through the infrastructural stuff to do that again. I mean, obviously we would have loved to be there more days, and hopefully we'll be able to do that more next year. This year it got truncated because I had a last minute job come in that I had to go manage.
I'm wondering if we might at some point get more support from the folks at NAB, simply because
we get all the support we want from that. I mean, they're not giving us money, but they give us space, and they gave us a 20.
Well, just
10
attendance down to 55,000 this year from the 100,000 plus that it was in past years. I would think that they would want to get out more signals to more people and get more people focused on the show. So we'll see. Yeah. Omar, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, while Alex was pushing the envelope, I was mailing postcards and after hour. I just wanted to share briefly for the people that were there what I did. Mine was a very, very low profile, small setup, but this was the signal chain that I used. It was a Sony FDR X3000 with the DJI mic into a Vela box encoder. This is an encoder and a software bonding solution that somebody developed primarily for Twitch streamers that do like IRL on the street, walking around type stuff. That goes into a cloud relay, into over SRT, into vMix, over to After Hours in Zoom, and then I was bringing back the After Hours audio to myself on the show floor via Discord call, so I had the mix minus without my voice. There's about 2 seconds of latency, so there's a little bit of stepping on each other's words, but I could share kind of what it looked like here. These aren't published, but this is what it looked like when I was walking around. I was pushing out about 8,000 kilobits a second at H.265, 1080-60 to YouTube. It's a little jerky when you're walking around, but it really gave you a feeling of walking around. I did it for, I don't know, on the Tuesday for about 5 hours. I met up with CJ on one of the days, or both days actually, and we started talking to people at Blackmagic, at Magewell, at a bunch of other booths, and I think it came off really well. Like, we were able to translate the questions from After Hours directly to the guys. There was a little bit of a awkwardness there with waiting for the 2 seconds, but you can see this is what it looked like. It's in a Sterilite container. There's some intake. It's $1.50 from Target if anybody wants to buy that.
But you didn't worry
container.
about cutting the port out for the fan. I noticed you just said, it's a plastic container. I'll cut it out, put the fan in.
Well, I didn't want to ruin my backpack, but it does have an exhaust and an intake. So if I had the proper backpack with mesh on the sides, that would have worked. But I mean, I think it was a really good experience. I think a lot of people liked it. The audio was kind of wonky with the DJI mics. There's a lot of like ANC with Zoom and also on the mics. And obviously, as Alex mentioned, nobody to manage that either. But I mean, look, you're able to see what's on the show floor. They're talking to us. It was a really good experience, and it was a lot of fun. So
a lot of development, a lot of testing. And I'm going to leave it there. Let's go on to the next question, see if we can get a couple more in for.
Yeah, we have a QR code question from Ron Vara in Washington, D.C., USA. I have a lot to talk about as a teacher on economics. Not sure how to do it as a brand in new influencer economy. How do I raise my profile and get noticed more as influencer and in social media? Where do I go and who do I talk to get followers? Internet money?
Alex Lindsay, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is to start doing it. You're going to, I think that Marques Brownlee, I think, had the best quote ever, which is that no one's going to watch the first 100 videos that you make, and so you're going to have to just kind of work through it. And that's the thing to look at when you look at influencers is how many of them were teenagers when YouTube was getting, when in the tens, like in 2012 and 2011, you look at Mr. Beast and Marques Brownlee and I mean, I think that, Justine Ezerick was probably a little older when she started, doing her thing, but in her 20s, early 20s, doing those things. And the thing is that they had time, and they just put their incredible amount of effort into no one watching anything. And then something, I mean, if you look at, there's someone who showed every year how many followers Mr. Beast had, and the first 2 or 3 years were pretty slow. Like, like they were, hundreds of followers. And then suddenly he took off. And so you have to know that there's a certain level of the way that social media earns their, like they don't go to school, they don't get a Harvard degree, they don't do those things, but they put these incredible amounts of hours into getting off the ground, and it's a meritocracy, you either figure it out or you don't. But, and there's definitely people that are not that way, but you have to have very thick skin and the willingness to kind of, push up against that to do that. So that's one thing that I would say. Another thing to say is watch a lot of social media. Like if you're not, you may be watching it now, but you got to watch a lot of it. I watch a lot of it as my job. Like I am paying attention to it. I'm watching TikTok every day. I'm watching YouTube every day. I'm watching, those are the two big. Instagram a little bit. Like I should watch more Instagram than I do. And so, but for me, TikTok and YouTube are the two things that show me two different flavors of of how social media gets done. And so you got to pay a lot of attention to the speed at which these things work and what people are doing to make it work. You have to be able to move much faster than you think you do. So how fast how you spool up your content it's getting more and more and more and more competitive as far as you have now you see you really have to be in your content in 15 seconds at the most. And that's and sometimes people will jump right into it and start something and then come back to it. So those are the things that you want to, kind of really think hard about. And then just having great content, right now, as an economics teacher, you have a lot to talk about, like the bond market. The bond market is super interesting right now as someone who's paying attention to the insanity of what's going on and why all the tariffs stopped. So it was because we were about to go into a depression. So I think the kind of content that you can talk about right now would be great because we just ran up to the brink and then stopped and no one knows why. So I think that, I think being able to explain those things about how, treasuries and how all these other things work, I think would be really, really interesting. You just have to make sure that but you're gonna have to practice a lot, and think about it and put out a lot of stuff that no one's watching for a little while.
Alexander Knight.
Everything Alex said, and I will add on the topic of money, Ron, since you mention it, go into it assuming you will make $0 because it'll be extremely deflating if you are constantly thinking every week that you're going to suddenly start making money. A very small percentage of people make money. I'm not saying that you can't or that you won't. Could take years, might not ever happen. So don't bank on that. Do it because you're passionate.
Jonas?
I would give you a couple of tips. Like Alex said, the first 100 videos are probably not going to go viral. Is what we used to say before we had crazy algorithms like TikTok and Instagram Reel algorithm. Like there is no better day than right now to get started and try something. There's some really great influencers that talk about hooks. I think hooks is probably the most important theme to know about right now. I still like to give people the tip of done is better than perfect. Like if you can do 5 good videos, do 5 good videos and see what sticks. You're not at the place yet where, especially if you're starting out, you don't know what sticks yet. And trying to make one perfect video and then that doesn't jive with the audience doesn't really help you. One other thing that you might notice is TikTok allows you to get a certain amount of free checking, hey, what's good, what's not good, because TikTok doesn't punish you for publishing very similar content. So I see a lot of influencers and even brands using TikTok as their platform to test content with. So they're just going in there, they're like, hey, what about this hook? And to be clear, hook is something like comparing two things. There's visual hooks, the typical thing of holding something weird in your hand or using a banana as your microphone, something that catches the audience, here's 2 countries compared on the debt level or something like that. And then what is also important is to be aware of the different type of platforms that we have. We have platforms that live from discoverability. That is mostly TikTok and Instagram Reels. YouTube also still has pretty good discoverability, which means is you can get discovered there. TikTok is terrible to build a community and a long-term audience that converts to sales. Money-wise, I would not expect to make money off the social media directly. What you will do is you will build your own personal brand, which will make people to trust you, give you warm leads, give you a way to make money that is not directly through AdSense. Through AdSense, you will not make enough money that it's worth it. But be aware of the different type of platforms that you have and build your thing that way. The last thing I'll say is use a content pyramid, do a long-term piece, a podcast piece, and cut it down to shorts.
Jason, can you do 5?
I can do 5 seconds, sure. Treat this like it's stand-up comedy, meaning your payment will be your enjoyment of doing this because you can't bank on anything else.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Same thing. I was going to say, you got to just do it. You can't talk about it. You can't think about it. You can't imagine it. And unless you're in the seat, and this is from somebody who has now done 1,000 office hours plus, you don't start learning until you start doing, literally. And you're never going to figure it out thinking about it. You have to start doing it. And then it's just a coin flip. You have expertise. Can you take a complicated subject like economics and make it understandable to the casual viewer? If you can, and you start building these reps, you can start building something out of this, at least a reputation for somebody who can explain a complex thing simply. All right. Thank you all for watching. This has been another incredible show. The amount of expertise we have that shows up for this panel every time, it just astonishes all of us. Our 3 constituencies, our producers, those of you who watch the show and add questions to help drive the discussion, thank you, thank you, thank you. For the panelists who come in every day and do their best to give you the wisdom of accumulated over a lifetime of practice, thank you to panelists. All the panelists have been through, but particularly for those who showed up today. And finally, the never-forgotten constituency of our back-end crew. It takes a large number of people with tremendous amounts of expertise to make this happen every single day. We've been developing it over 2,000 daily shows, and it shows. I don't think we're quite at 2,000, but we've been doing this now for 5 years. And boy, the arc of me understanding how to do this kind of thing from the beginning to now to today, it's been amazing. And that's why I keep saying you just got to do it. Our Telect Traversal today, that's 42,000 miles. That's how far you would have had to travel to get to the people who brought their expertise. That is 68,000 kilometers, 333 million bananas for scale. After Hours is open all the time, so you can hop over there and continue to chat with people. We'll see you tomorrow.
I finally remembered to pull focus on the banana. I'm so proud of myself.
Last thing you want is a fuzzy banana. That doesn't sound good at all.
Oh.
Unappealing.
Where's the rim shot sound effect? Omar, it was good to see you. Great appearance.
Yeah, well
thanks very
done.
much.
And seriously, respect for just coming and doing stuff, because that is the right. No, seriously, that is the best way to do this. And
Yeah, here it
is.
that Tupperware, Tupperware is absolutely worth $1.50. No,
those steer kites are more than $1.50. Those are the nice stuff.
You bought the premium.
You bought the premium. It's not just Tupperware.
Yeah, this is the one with the good clips. See, it's got.
Yeah, there you go. So the purple